City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
No, I did.
All right, Joanna, okay, you ready? Okay, I'd like to call the Northglenn City Council study session to order. Joanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Downing?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dodge?
Here.
Councilmember Schnetzinger may be absent. Councilmember Mollica?
Here.
Councilmember Sowers?
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brown will be late. Councilmember Becky Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Whitman?
Here.
Councilmember Escobar?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Web
So-
design?
Yeah, so I'll have Margot and our consultant from Revise, Thomas, come on up. If you're familiar with what we did with the bike ped project, you know, is very interactive, and that's our intent tonight as well. So I won't steal their thunder and turn over to them to walk you through where we're at with the web project.
Okay.
Good evening. Happy to be here with you. And I'm exceptionally happy to introduce you to Thomas Jean. He is with Revise Government Websites, and he is here now collecting information from staff, from the web committee, from the community, and from council tonight about the website, what we want in a website, what we like, what we don't like, just feedback. The more feedback he gets, the better website he can develop for us. Revise has done 1,200 websites with 800 plus municipalities, so they specialize in government websites, and we feel like we're in very good hands. When we had the interview with Thomas on the phone, we all just looked at each other after and were just in awe, and we still are, that he is a nice guy and very smart and very collaborative. He was the most collaborative of all the people that we interviewed. So with that, I will let him do his presentation.
Thanks for having me, folks. Yeah, so basically what we're here to do is gather as much info as possible to make your website as great as possible. Essentially, we're trying to get all stakeholders involved in at least some way to let their voice be heard now, so we can obviously build the website in that way. What we want to avoid is halfway through the project or deeper into the project needing to go back. So the more information you can give us now, the better, both good, bad, otherwise. From our time here, we'll be taking all of our information back to our offices and start the process of building the website. The first thing you will see, probably about 4 to 6 weeks from now, will be an initial design concept. That design concept will look just like a picture of what the website will look like. It will not function whatsoever. And your job at that point will be to look it over, provide any changes that you want us to make to it. It could be the colors, it could be the layout, anything and everything. We will take that list and we will analyze it, but we won't just make every single change for you initially. If we feel that a request that you're making might actually hurt the design in the end, we'll come back to you and maybe ask to reconsider. So that is the type of hand-holding that we'll do throughout the project. Once you've approved that design as final, it's pretty downhill from there. We develop everything, we move in the content, we add in all the different features that you don't have now. We'll be here to train your staff on how to use the website, and then from there you'll have the opportunity to make any changes or do any cleanup of content, before the website goes live. So is there any questions just on the process? Okay, great.
Might ask of you from that?
Sure.
Is that you clearly identify when you're speaking back to, especially just me, I'll just speak for myself, that it is something that, a request that I make
Yep,
would affect the website poorly, okay? I need you to tell me that. I don't want to have to, try to figure it out myself, that that's why you're telling me I can't have something.
sure,
All right, I need a real open, clear, transparent communication.
absolutely.
He said that in our interview with him, and we liked that about him, that that it's going to be realistic and he will truly guide the process. So that's a good thing.
Now, sorry to cut you off there. In addition to that, obviously it is your website and you can tell us to do whatever you want ultimately, but we'll be clear. Each time we send a new draft of anything that we do related to the design, our lead designer sends a brief with it on why we made certain design choices, and then you can tell us maybe why you'd like it changed in the future.
So you're not going to accept because I just want it changed?
No, we'll accept that. Yeah, we will accept that. But our designers, they're looking out for you, not just now, but in the future. So there's always a reason we do things, and we will be clear
Okay.
about it too.
That's all I ask.
Great. Okay. Any other just generic, general project questions? Okay. Okay, great. So let's just get into it. We sent you a few websites that you may be familiar with already from local agencies. One was the city of Thornton, and what we want to do is just ask maybe what you like, what you don't like about this site, maybe some items that you'd like incorporated into the new website. Could be anything and everything. So, any opinions here on this site?
I don't like anything on that side.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
It's really busy to do.
I like ours better than theirs.
Yeah, I agree.
Just a lot.
Yeah,
Open it, a lot of wording.
absolutely. Yeah, and again, sorry to cut you guys off, but we see, the homepage has to be the book cover, not page 50 of the book. So we want people to be more invited into the website, and putting way too much content on the homepage is not a good way to do that. So in the design, we'll make sure that's a key element. Is there anything in particular on the homepage, regardless of if it's here or not, that you want to see in the new website?
You talking about Thornton's website?
I'm talking about Northglenn's new
Because
website.
I'm still looking at the.
Sure, yeah. We can look at the current website if you like, but,
I do like having those maps, the Thornton City map and everything. I did like that.
okay.
That's funny because I don't. Like,
Oh!
I know, and that was the first thing that jumped out at me. I was like, really? Do the maps have to be on the
Yeah, I agree
first
with you. I didn't
page?
share 480.
Probably not on the
more
first page.
exciting things
Yeah.
than that? I don't know.
The only thing I would take over is probably having our city logo on the front page. Other than that, I don't like that website at all.
Okay. Okay.
The calendar? It's okay.
By the way, we did not build this website, so.
Is there one that you did build that you can show us?
Sure. Now, these are going to be my personal favorites that I'll bring up, but
How about Wiley?
sure. Do that. This one I'll bring up is going to be Wiley, Texas. It was launched probably about a year and a half ago or so.
That's a good website right there.
Yeah. It actually does not scroll at all, which can be tough to do and do right, but in this case, I think we did a pretty good job of it.
How big is that town, do you know?
I do not right now. You could do a quick Google search and find out though. 45,000.
I had some adjectives that I wrote down, and I looked at all the websites, and I didn't like any of the websites that were provided to look at.
Okay, sure.
But, and it just brings me up to this one, and there is one website maybe you can go to after you're done surfing Wiley, is Erie, Colorado's. But like soft, community-oriented, like a feeling of community in that website, on that homepage. And I definitely, you can see that on this webpage. I feel that same
Sure.
thing. So,
And you said the other one was Erie,
yeah.
Colorado?
Erie.
And you guys didn't build Erie, but I just,
See, now that other one, that one that we just saw, that felt overwhelming to me. Like, when I looked at it, I wanted to shut off right away. You know, just the Wiley one and ours. But I agree with something like this. I feel that it's calmer.
It does have a sense of community also.
There's a lot of space, it's not all crowded like most
Yeah.
websites are. I like all that open space.
So what I like about Erie's, besides the layout and it's really inviting and clean, is you did the same thing on the Wiley. Instead of trying to cram the social media icons in the top, you use the script to put it on the left side and the social share on Wiley instead of trying to cram it in. I just think it helps to put those prominent, but without having to take up the space.
Right.
Without overwhelming the webpage, yeah.
Okay. Our designers like to ask a question. What, when someone comes to the website, what feeling do you want them to feel when they come? Is it community? Is it business friendly? What would that be potentially?
So,
Both.
and I like the calendar. I like to, when I get on the front page, I do like to be able to look at what's happening.
The
that
calendar
week.
on the front page.
Yeah.
Of the current website?
Mhm,
Sure.
mhm.
I don't know, there's a certain sense of like nostalgia that comes along with these websites that we're looking at too. Like, I think back to like, you know, the 50s and you'd go next door and ask your neighbor to buy a, you know, or to borrow a cup of sugar or, you know, that type
Right.
of thing. And people are out, you know, playing football in the street, you know, and you're having block parties and barbecues and so.
Yes. Yeah, just in my time here today, it's a very active community. You guys have so much going on, it seems. And from the current site, I don't think I would really know that. So
Right.
I think that's definitely something we can push forward a little bit more.
It's going to be really important to me personally again, if the website looks professional.
Right.
You know, colors, fonts, things like that really drive me crazy. So those things would be really, really important to me.
Okay.
And the first one that you chose, not to pick on that one, since it was so in your face, you know, the Wiley, Texas one, it didn't feel professional, not to where I want to go. And I know this
Okay.
isn't all about me, but it
Right.
just didn't have that feel with it.
Okay. Let's see if I can bring one up here. We recently launched this one. This is a village in Illinois, village of Glencoe, Illinois. So nice and open. You're not bombarded with too much information. You have your needs there right at the bottom. And you scroll a little bit and get more news and headlines. There's your calendar. And then there's a nice areas of interest here. So,
And that's really the goal, so that people can scroll through it and find, you know, have more things that come up.
right. And it's very natural now to scroll through a website, especially like you're on your smartphone. The majority of most of our clients' traffic is going to come from a smartphone. So we're actually thinking more about, or at least as much about what it's going to look like on the mobile experience versus desktop as we're doing now.
I'm trying to find out if this is the one I like before I scream it out to you.
Okay.
So I'm really not playing.
If we could take a look at Broomfield for a moment. much different than Thornton.
Right, that's not bad.
There is not, in this case, a top navigation, which is a risk, but if done right, can be done well. They're wanting people to search in this search bar here. I don't believe that's something we'll be doing here, just in my conversation so far, but it is an option if need be. Any likes or dislikes about this particular site?
When you click on each of the buttons, it takes you to a whole different page, right? This one? Basically, yeah. So what's the risk of doing that as opposed to having a drop-down menu and then taking you that way? Like you can go through the many options as opposed to just taking you to one page and then it'll give you many different options again.
The risk is that you have to be disciplined in what you put there, because you may have actually 20 things in the city that need to be on the homepage, or that you think might need to be on the homepage. So you have to be willing to know that you maybe won't be able to do that as much. Your residents may say, hey, I can't find what I'm looking for in these 6 buttons, and they pick up the phone. That's a risk. But then also you have the search to accommodate or maybe mitigate that a bit. Again, this is not a site we built, but
I would think that they probably made those choices based off of their web stats and seeing what were the top links that were being clicked on the site. And they probably evaluated those blocks and then the 3 blocks below as being the most popular
absolutely,
pages.
yep, absolutely. And we're doing that here as well. What I will say with that is typically after about the first 5 or 6 things, the traffic to those things drops off substantially. So like the top 5 things are going to be the majority of your hits, and then everything else is going to be a fraction of that.
I don't like this one that much. I don't feel a sense of community from it at all, which I think Northglenn is very well known for. So, yeah, this one doesn't do it for me.
Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
I'm just curious, based on the way that your company's set up, is there any limitations based on like templates that you guys use that we're going to be limited by?
Sure. So as what we're doing here, we're determining what type of page templates you'll need. Typically, when the website goes live, you'll have about 15 or so. But as part of our service in the future, if you do need a new template, we'll build it for you and input it. Now, if it's something unreasonable, like something totally out of left field, we would not be able to do that, at least as part of the cost we already have. But yeah, if it's within reason, there's really no limit. Now, you do want to keep somewhat of a uniform feel for a lot of the pages, but to the extent possible that we can keep each one unique, we'll do that.
So you're custom building these home pages and everything as they go there. It's not just a template that we're limited by.
Right. Yeah. And I should have spoke that first. The whole thing is from the ground up, from scratch, custom. We use no templates in terms of the design of it at all. Now, there's things that every city's going to need, like an agendas and minutes area that's going to be pretty standard. Document center that's going to be pretty standard that we do reuse, just proven code in. But in terms of the design, it's 100% from scratch. Let's move on to Adams County. This was the other one we had sent to you. Has a large photo. Again, we didn't build this one, but just local here. Large photo, mega menus, as you see here.
For me, it's really difficult to navigate that particular website.
Okay.
Not very welcoming. I mean, the picture's beautiful, but
Yeah.
just even the typeface and everything is harsh to me.
But I've had to go look for something in there, and I've had to look, and it's really difficult.
Right. So we know from experience then. Okay.
I think the
Any-
engagement with social media too, on the other ones, it's kind of at the top or on the side, as opposed to having to scroll at the bottom and find it. That's
Oh, yeah.
engagement on the minute news.
Absolutely. Okay. Any likes on this particular site?
I like it. I like Adam's better than on the others.
Okay.
Is it the picture you like
No,
best, or?
the picture's not gonna be,
Right, I just wondered,
no,
yeah.
I think the news, the events, I don't know what the video business, but news and events is, I think is helpful. I think certain bars is good, I've used it. I usually find what I'm looking for, and the picture's not. Webster Lake would be a nice picture,
Right.
and that would change everything.
Right.
But I still wouldn't like it.
There's no color in the bottom either
Yeah.
where they're listing the news and
Question was, does
events.
anybody like it?
Right,
No.
that's true.
Okay, so it feels a little cold to us, a little generic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Pull one up here. I pulled this one up earlier today for one of my discussions, and it got some decent feedback. It's in North Carolina here. As you can see, social media is right at the top there. We have this Explore Rutherfordton, as we call it, so it's more of a what's going on in the area, what are our programs, activities, kind of something that is clearly different. Then the top links are going to be right there. More popular links to the left, news and events. So clean, to the point, and you're not over inundating people.
It seems not as busy, but everything is still there and available
Yeah,
pretty easily.
Right.
I really like the breakdown where, you know, the top line where it has for residents, for businesses. I really do like that.
The Explore option's cool, awesome too. It just gives you local restaurants, things to do in the area, based off category.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, I mean, I was shocked at the amount and the variety and uniqueness of events that you do have here. And I think they, if you're okay with it, deserve some type of call out on the homepage to draw people to that.
The only thing I don't like on this one is where the social media, well, one, I don't want to seem easy to you. I don't like them on the top. I did like that one that had everything down the side, you know?
Okay.
But I could cave on that if we ended up at the top.
Sure. Yeah, and that's a good example of something that even if, like, say for example, you were to go live with a website that had links like this up top, you could tell us, hey, turns out we just don't want that. That would be something that we could change in the future. So once your website is live, while we do want to get it as close to perfect as possible, everything can be changed at some point if needed.
Does the city of Northglenn have an Instagram account?
Don't.
No, I was
We
asking.
do not. Okay.
Or LinkedIn.
Look, it's Mayor Joyce Downing in the front.
What did I do?
No picture though.
All right. A few more I just want to bring up for discussion. I can find them. My apologies.
I think what I really want to have on the front page is when you know somebody opens it up, I want them to feel like I want to move there. That's awesome. Or I'm glad I live here.
I'll show you this one. This tends to be a fan favorite. It's Bristol Bay, Alaska. And this is an example of a client that's very small, but they kind of let our designers do what they're good at. And they didn't have Probably because they were small, that necessitated that, but they basically said, give us something unique, give us something we've never seen before, and this came of it. Now, it probably wouldn't work for a city this large, but for them, it worked very well. There's no top navigation, for example. It's to the side here with mega menus. Now, they're not overpopulated, though, with way too much content, which can be very tough for folks to get what they need to get to.
What's the bouncing arrow?
That is a call, basically, to let people know that you scroll. And we've had people say, we want that arrow, but just don't make it bounce. So you do have that option.
How large of a community is it?
Very small. I think they have about 1,000 residents, but geographically, it's very large.
It's a beautiful area.
It
I
is.
know. That's got the I want to live there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it does.
Here's another one I'd like to show you. This is Flagler County, Florida.
That reminds me of our website that we have right now.
Yeah.
So what do you think of a mega menu?
Maybe.
Like Adams County has that giant list that pops up.
I think it's like 6 of one, half dozen of another. You know, some people are going to like it, some people aren't.
The key with mega menus is not overpopulating them like we may think Adams County is. So here's one example of not overpopulated. This is a community in Georgia.
I think the problem with Adams County is they were asking it in the form of a question. And so they had so many words per item that it made it very cluttered. And my pet peeve is when you use headlines that are black and then the text below it is black, so there's no separation.
Right.
So, I think you just need to be conscious of having heading color fonts and body fonts.
Right, absolutely.
Thomas, we had some feedback about the 4 residents, 4 businesses. And I've seen this one kind of shows a hybrid where maybe if you want to find a specific department, you can go to that one. If you're a resident, you want to go there. But there's obviously some, if you will, cross-pollination, right? You find 2 different ways to get there.
Right.
You find that a lot?
We do.
When you're designing?
We do. And we actually encourage it only if it's located in one spot. So for example, building permit. I want to be able to get to there 5 different ways, but I don't want 5 different pieces of information from those ways. So what we do is we'll house it in the most appropriate spot, and then we'll make it so an employee can find it, we'll make it so a resident can find it, and we'll make it so a contractor can find it, all maybe in a different way.
But it's all pointing to the same place.
All point to the exact same place. That helps, of course, especially with in the non-ideal situation, you may update one place but not the other, and then all of a sudden you have 2 pieces of information that should be the same, but they're not. But that's how we'll redevelop it to make it easy, clean. In terms of just the general layout, though, do we agree? Maybe definitely we want large photo, possibly rotating, or any thoughts just on that?
I really liked how that one that we were looking at had the restaurants, you know, you could see the burger and the fries and all that going over here. And I really did like that rather than just one roll.
Do you recall what website that was?
That was Erie, right?
Oh, Erie, okay, my apologies.
I just thought that was kind of awesome because it drew my eye to, I want to go out and eat, I'm hungry, you know? Shop local. See? I love it.
It's like they've incorporated some branding to their.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I really, I do like this one. I like this sidebar. Don't know why, but that just, I really like this sidebar. That's, you know, yeah. It's, yes, exactly.
And what's nice is it will follow you through the website, so no matter what page you're on, you can always get to those things, which are probably very important, news, calendar.
What I liked about the way that they did their navigation here is that they're not kidding themselves. They know that there's a ton of links. And instead of trying to cram them all into the menus, there's another menu on a page. What I don't necessarily love about that is that somebody ends up clicking 3 or more times. And that's something that frustrates me about the current website, is half the time you have to click more than 3 times to get to the information.
Right. Yeah, and the rule is definitely 3 or less if possible. What you do want to avoid though is on the other side of that, yeah, I can get to one of these things in 1 click, but it might not be intuitive for me to find it. So you got to strike a balance between the amount of clicks versus how easy it is to naturally get there. And that's that would be our challenge, of course, too.
And, you know, to go back to what Becky said, I think that you want to create a website that has a feeling, and so with your pictures and everything, if that's a place I want to be, it's a place I'm proud to be a part of. You know, all of those feelings I think that you want, you know, to have when people click and come to your website. Another thing that I'd like to bring up too, and this is probably more for Margot, is we're going to a lot of these websites, and a lot of them have, you know, a logo or something saying, you know, they were chosen as Money Magazine's Best Places to Live in America, or another magazine's Best Places to Live in America. And so obviously I think that that's becoming a trend, you know, with these websites and the cities that we're being a part of, and I think that's something that our community probably needs to start looking into as well. You know, we're making a lot of investments in this community and doing a lot of neat things, and even you said it with our events and whatnot, they're really unique and community oriented, and so right there on the top it says Money, Best Places to Live. You know, so that's definitely something to be proud of, and I think it's something that Northglenn should be looking at as well, because it's been consistent throughout a lot of these websites that you're going through.
Absolutely.
Talking about that responsive side of things, what I think Erie did really well is if you pull that up on your mobile device, they made sure that all of their icons, if you shrink it down, you can maybe show them how it worked, but all of the little icons, can you scroll down just a little bit? Oh, it's not doing it very well. If you pull it up on your phone, it responds better, but all of those icons are exactly the size of your thumb, and so they're easy to press on, and I think nothing on our website is easy to click on. You can easily overlap on links because they're stacked directly on top of each other.
Right.
So Thomas, I've seen that message pop up on a few of the sites you've gone to. Is that some message then that we would control, like if there's an urgent thing we want to get out, so it pops up on the homepage?
Correct, yep. Also, folks will be able to sign up to receive an email and a text message if they choose when that goes out. So I could always know when maybe a road is closed or something of that nature, and you have full control over it.
So that was a video, it looked like, on the front page, kind of.
So this is Logan, Utah. I'd say overall this one probably pushes the limit the most that we've ever done in terms of what a city website is, but they were very open to it. They wanted to feature this video on the homepage. It does scroll quite a bit, which can be done very well. There's their news and their calendar. Here's those icons that would be the size of your thumb. There's like the action center, so all the things people just want to do. The mayor had to have a spot on the homepage, so we can do that for you. And economic development was hugely important to them as well, so we did something specific on the homepage just for that.
It's a long page.
It is, and it does take some getting used to, but that's the way websites are moving. I mean, one day we're gonna see 90% or maybe 80% of all of your traffic coming from a smartphone. It's growing every single year, and on a smartphone, this is great. I mean, I would definitely suggest pulling it up if you have a chance. But in the interim, we don't have to go that long. I'd say half of that is long enough to get what we need to get done for the city. Because what it does do is it separates things enough to where I'm focused on one thing at a time, and I'm not looking through a mountain of everything being thrown at me at once. Any other need to haves or
Functions,
functions, or in a perfect world, what we could do for you?
connectivity with residents. There's a lot of options.
Well, I'm throwing this out, and I don't know how you control, I cannot handle going to the search and never finding what I'm looking for ever, when I know it's there somewhere. The case that I'm gonna bring up is that I've been mentioning a few of the sculptures in my Facebook posts, and I can't find the names of them, and I know it's on the website somewhere. It takes me everywhere, but I cannot find it, and it's just, and that's not the only time. I mean, I feel like every time I search on our website, I end up somewhere where I don't want to be. So I don't know how you control that the search actually gives people the answers they're looking for, but that's really important because that's totally frustrating.
Absolutely. The big thing for that is the content. Does it make sense? Does it really? So we're going to be doing a completely different search than you have now. The actual bones behind it, but the key to it in the future will be the content being relevant to that topic. So if you type in sculptures, ideally, as long as our content is there, that first page is going to be the page that is most relevant to sculptures, with pictures potentially. Yeah.
I tried about 10 different keywords that never got me to where I needed to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So you said you're going to do a different type of search, so what's the difference?
Right now, I believe yours is driven by tagging of pages, and that is inconsistent because you have what tagging is I build a page, and at the bottom of it or in a piece of the website, I'll say, okay, this is relevant to parks, this is relevant to city clerk, but someone else could do another page, and it could be relevant to city clerk, but in their mind, they don't think that, so they put a different tag. Our search will be using Bing search, which takes out that whole tagging system altogether.
So is there an option to do a search that's more of a customer service oriented search, kind of like a Zendesk, where they're like asking a question and it pulls it up more as a better result? Like I need help with, do you know what Zendesk is?
I've heard of it. I'm not up enough on it to talk intelligently about it though.
So if you've gone to like a tech support or Target or any of those types of sites and you were to type in a question, the search brings it as if it was a customer service person responding to the search. So it's a more detailed search and gives you better answers than just this scrolling list of pages.
Right.
So it tries to be more helpful, customer service oriented.
Okay.
Personally, I would rather see a search that incorporates that more than just spitting out a bunch of pages or something.
Sure. Okay. I will look into it and we'll see if that's something we can integrate. Another couple things we do, and let me see if this will work. In this particular search for troymichigan.gov, they can basically manipulate these links here whenever they want. So if it's tax season and I know that's coming up prominently and I'm getting calls about it every day, we can put that, or you can put that to the top of the list. And then as you start typing, it starts to suggest also what you're looking for. So that's another thing that we'll do. And then finally, we can do more refined searches. So I can exclude things. I can only search PDFs or only search one part of the website. So I know it's going to be in the clerk's office. So I just type in that. So there's a lot of different things we can do other than just spitting out pages and pages.
Just real quick, I like the idea of being able to communicate with the residents, via text message or whatnot if something's going on, and we can try to build up that list so that we can easily communicate with our residents. And then I'd also like to see somehow having something, I know it's still in discussions, but for setting it up for the future to be able to live stream our council meetings for those people who can't make it. I think that that's important, and especially the time of our meetings sometimes doesn't work for some of our residents, and so being able to have them watch online through the website would be important to me.
Sure, yeah. And we can accommodate that even in the future. If it takes you a year or two to get that rolling, we'll be ready for it.
So will we be using the email sign up through the system, and then is that how we'll be sending emails, or is there a third-party system that we'll be sending emails from?
Whichever you choose. You do have our system to use, but if you're already using like Constant Contact or something like that and you want to continue using it, we can integrate with it.
So I would say that for me, what's important is that the email sign up have categories and frequency that people can choose. I think it's also a value to try to determine what ward people are in, to be able to send them targeted emails by ward.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to our ward meetings. So we're not blasting everybody about a ward meeting that doesn't even pertain to them.
Right.
So I think better developing that will be important. I think getting us into CAN-SPAM compliance, which we're not now, would be a good choice. I like how Firestone has a notify me feature, and it has the text alerts like Kyle was saying. I think that's probably a subscription based, but we could carry the concept over.
Okay. You said Firestone?
Yeah. Firestone, Colorado.
Oh, okay. I was thinking the tire company.
Oh.
Sorry. Do you know whereabouts that might lie?
You can click on the sign
Right
up right there in the middle. You can click anywhere. They have it like 4 or 5 different places.
So in the 5 things right there in the middle,
So there's
notify.
a flaw. Like, you should be able to click on that image and be able to go.
Right.
You should be able to click on the heading and go.
Absolutely.
Let's see, now you have 5 clicks, but if you just click on that one in the center that says,
Notify me.
click on the login. And see how they have kind of like these lists of what you can. I think they went a little overboard with it, but being able to at least just choose, like, do I want to get agenda items? Do I, like, I get their event notifications. I don't get their agenda, but I get all their events.
Okay. Yeah. We have a similar system. Type in their email and their phone number, and then they get to choose which pages.
Right.
And then you get to choose which pages they can sign up for as well, and which alerts they can sign up for.
Is the how do I list important?
I think so. I mean, that would have been convenient.
How many of the clients that you've worked for actually ask for feedback from the residents on their websites? What are we doing well? What aren't we doing well?
I don't know a number. It's probably maybe a quarter. Maybe. I would say probably all of them get feedback, whether they want it or not. But yeah, I would say you should, if you do want to make your website the best it can be. We do have a survey developed right now that we're talking about posting on the current website and in the newsletter to get feedback now. we can do the same thing as we're moving about the project if you want to get feedback at that point.
It's important.
So, I don't know if you're understanding me correctly, like not just feedback on this. I mean, what things that are going on, there's a pothole on the street, can you go, that kind of thing, where they can just send it to the city and I don't know who's gonna monitor that, but, yeah, just if they have questions or comments.
Sure, absolutely. We've got multiple different tools to do that.
But do people do that? I mean, you work with
Yeah.
a lot of municipalities, so
Absolutely.
they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because if you don't do it, they're gonna call anyways, so it's easier to have them do it through the website if you can.
One of the things that I've been working with Bob on for the last several weeks is we currently use CitizenServe for our code enforcement people, and we found that the annual subscription for that service is actually about the same as it would be for a citywide customer relations management system or citizen management system. And so we're going to be looking at doing that in 2018, but we may start to implement that for code enforcement as soon as the end of this year. So we would, be tying that into this improvement as well. So I think it'll dovetail pretty nicely by the end of the year.
Marcy?
So have you seen any cities that are using overlay windows to draw your attention to one particular action that they want on the homepage? So for example, we struggle to get citizen engagement. We struggle to get them to give input on, we have this plan right now, we're trying to get input on trails and improvements and that sort of thing. And it's buried in the website right now. So I would like to see us at least try it, to implement an overlay that would be a designed element that would promote for them to give input. They can click to close it, but I'd like to just explore. They're easy to implement and response rates are really good. Probably implement it even on our website right now, but I definitely would be interested in at least seeing how many people click and convert over into something that we're trying to get them to engage in.
Sure, okay. Yeah, and we can design something specifically for that, and then allow it to be kind of retooled and reused in different ways as the website grows and as you guys have different needs.
Go.
Okay. Just of note throughout the project, you can always get comments to Margot. You will be seeing it moving along and you can always have input. So today you don't have to tell us everything on your mind. You can always send emails of things like maybe, hey, I just saw something on another website. Can you see if they'll implement this? So keep that in mind. We actually encourage it. Helps to make you guys happier in the end.
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
So we talked only about home pages and nothing internal page.
Right. Internal pages, how our process tends to work is those needs get developed based on our individual department meetings. But do you have any thoughts on that you want to talk about? We're happy to do it.
Sure.
Sure.
Can you go back to the Wiley site?
Sure.
So this is actually why I like the Wiley site. It was the sidebar, but the internal pages. And if you could click on the parks, that would be a good one. It's under departments.
Sorry.
So I don't love that they don't have the scrolling feature, but their pages change on the inside. So once you start clicking into any of those pages, their department logo changes and the pages inside change. So it has a picture across the top and then the pages start scrolling, but it's integrating all of their branding colors, which we have great new branding colors that I'd like to see used on the site.
Right.
But I think we also have great imagery for many of our departments in some areas that we don't ever highlight with images.
Right.
I feel like on our current site, we're afraid to use photos. There are just hardly any photos anywhere. It's all text.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I liked about the inside, and then, I don't know why it's so small on your screen, but,
Zoom out, sorry.
I think the font size was getting much better on these and good large headings, and I like that about this site.
Right,
I also like that it doesn't have busy backgrounds.
yep.
It doesn't have what, I'm sorry?
Busy backgrounds,
Oh, yeah.
like, I think when you start getting like the creams and the tans, and it's difficult for people to read it.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and this is well within the scope of what we're doing here, so at minimum, you'll have logos that change and images that change in the background. Some departments, based on the need, will have more than that too, so.
Okay.
Final thoughts, or?
Any other thoughts or questions or comments?
At this point, you take this information back along with what you've heard from the department heads, right?
Correct.
And you'll be returning to us, which is our first document that we're gonna look at. Are we gonna look at that one that we saw where the top 5 categories and things like that? Do we provide the input for the top 5 categories? Do you do that off of, how do you envision that working? And Margot, not to put you on the spot, but if you were, what would you put on there as your top 5 categories?
Well, it's based on the data, and I had Bob pull the top 100 pages, where people go on our website. And I think that we need to stick with some of those, and it's jobs and utility billing and events, and the 4th of July was one of them. But beyond that, it could be whatever we think it needs to be, whatever people need to know the most of, the rec center. But it's based on data,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that really doesn't help us because when you're in our website now, you're running in circles anyhow. So,
And you know, it's important to note that we're not fixing up the old site. We're getting
Right.
a whole new site.
no, I agree.
Yeah.
So it might be with the feature that they were explaining a minute ago, where the highest priority, such as you said, taxes, so that would pump right up to the top, you know, so.
So somebody from our side, is that you, Margot? Somebody from our side will be managing this website?
Yeah.
The content on it?
Uh-huh.
What's your citizen engagement been like so far? Because I know you're trying to get staff perspective, our perspective. I've seen that you're trying to get citizen
We
perspective.
had a meeting scheduled today with extensive promotion to participate. We had one person call to say she wanted to come, and she didn't come. So we didn't have any citizen participation today. However, we're going to post the community survey this week, so we'll have that. And as Thomas said earlier to me, we were visiting about that, he said he could always do one remotely, just over the phone. We could just have a session just like this and talk to community members.
So
which
why
would be
don't we
valuable.
look at the telephone town hall to talk about something about that? Or maybe one of the ward meetings or Mayor on the Move, you know, that way we have some folks that attend those things, at least it's a start.
I think the survey will be valuable, but in person is certainly what we want.
I think, yeah.
I agree.
As far as content for the town hall, it would be more around what's most important for you at that point, right? Because at that point, we can't hold it that long for design info.
No.
Like,
Right.
Right.
how would you rather navigate the site? Those aren't things that we
That's
can really
true.
get focused
Right.
on.
That's true.
It's 6 weeks or more away.
More,
Yeah,
it's 2 months away.
2 months.
I think we also
But we
need to
can always
focus.
move those dates too. I mean, you know, there's nothing is cast in concrete that can be moved, so.
I would also like to see us focus on making sure that we can get meetings maybe in a more appropriate time for some of our
Correct.
residents.
I think that was part of the
Because
Mhm.
3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I know
Right.
a lot of our
An
residents.
evening, an early evening would work. I agree.
And a good spot to do that potentially is when we give you that initial design concept. If it's not too much work, maybe have a evening session just for people to give their feedback on it. And we can have online surveys for each phase even to get really drilled down on what your residents want. So
Jim, is it appropriate? I typed up my comments. Can I give?
absolutely.
I mean, one for council if anybody wants one.
So just to try to wrap it up, I guess, I heard 4 to 6 weeks while initial design. What are the next steps that will involve city council, I guess?
The next steps, we do want you to take a look at that initial design and stop us before we design our way into a corner. So we'll provide that to you, and we'd like you to send in your feedback. So that's the next time we'll need you. So that's 4 to 6 weeks from today, and then we'll need the final sign off on that. So depending on the amount of changes, it could be another 2 to 3 weeks after the initial design and how long it takes you to get back to us. That will basically be it in terms of formal sign-offs we need from you and engagement from you. But if you ever need more or want more meetings, want to do a webinar just to get an update, I'm happy to do that anytime for you.
Are you local to Colorado?
We are not. We are local to Detroit, Michigan, but we have clients in almost every state, including Colorado.
All right.
We like their flexibility, their willingness to accommodate whatever needs we had.
I was just wondering if he'd come to a ward meeting.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking local is what I was thinking, so.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time. I
Oh, I
appreciate
like
it.
that, Marcy.
Okay. All right, Amanda, Webster Lake Promenade, Public Art. Or is that Amanda or is that Michael? All right.
Yeah, Michael tonight.
All right.
Yeah, I'll do my best to be Amanda tonight.
All right.
Where's your dress?
All right, well, thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm very happy to be here. Honestly, when I get to come in and talk about these projects, I feel like I've got the best job in the world. The Webster Lake Promenade Public Art Project is extremely exciting. I'm happy to be here to report on its progress. So just real quickly, just for some historical context, in addition to the Art on Parade, since the early 2000s, NHF has had the quote-unquote purchase of a monumental sculpture at 120th as a goal in its strategic plan. So that was established by the NHF at a time when, the area wasn't developed yet, but it was obviously something that the city was hopefully eventually going to develop, and that it seemed like a good opportunity to do a larger scale project. And so the foundation had that in the strategic plan, and over the years we've continued to report on that. So as the Webster Lake Promenade development started to come to fruition, the NHF talked with NURA, and they then started discussions as well. So this was all around three to 4 years ago, and a lot of excitement was built around that time. So while the Webster Lake Promenade was being completed, Hawkins Development installed 4 sculpture pads near the center of the property. It's great. They already put it in the pads. They all include 4 sources of lighting as well. The pads are, the elevations of the pads are a little bit different, but they're all uniform in their placement and size. They're all about 9 feet 9 feet in diameter. It's that area out in the parking lot, and the pads are all adjacent to some landscaping and some trees. The location is great because it will draw attention to the installation and enhance the space, at the same time not pulling away or distracting from all of the business signage and all of their messaging. The funding, the NHF has been earmarking mostly our investment income over the years for this, and some SCFD dollars. And when the Webster Lake Promenade was completed and we knew what the size of the project would be with the 4 pads, the NHF committed $30,000 to the project. The city and NURA then committed $35,000 each to make it a full round $100,000 project. And the budget was based on industry standards. understanding the proportion of the actual venue, and then what was reasonable to be spending on public art to make sure that it's impactful but also not wasteful. The call for entry. This began on March 2nd of this year. We put out a call for entry on Cafe, which is the same system that we use for Art on Parade. So it goes internationally. So we have a great reach. In the prospectus, which outlines all of the details of the project, we made sure to exclude items that were expensive to maintain and work in line with other programs, meaning we already have a lot of systems in place for maintenance and that kind of thing, so we make sure to include that in the prospectus. Durability was a major concern. We made sure to define that. We requested that there be no water features, no hanging sculptures, and no substantially wooden sculptures. Those things just don't last long, and they can become exceptionally expensive. And we also required that it must stay within the budget. It had to include design, fabrication, installation, travel, shipping, whatever costs they can come up with. It's got to be within the budget. We just simply do not ever want to go over that. The call closed on April 14th. We then created, and during that time, we created a selection committee. The committee was formed, and we made sure that we had significant representation from the city, NURA, NHF, and Hawkins Development. We wanted to make sure that everybody's constituents were represented within the committee. Let's see here. Oh, we even got the chief of police to participate too, which was cool. So we met twice on April 25th and on May 9th. We received 98 submissions. So 98 submissions is substantial for any public art project. So we were really, really happy to see that. They were mostly from around the country, but we actually had a few from Canada, 2 or 3. And in these submissions, it included every medium that met the criteria. So it included steel, bronze, kinetic, abstract, realism. It included a little bit of everything. So these were then narrowed down to the best that represented those mediums. And the committee narrowed that field from there all the way down to 4 finalists on April 25th. After April 25th, I then spent about a week and a half with those 4 finalists, over the phone mostly, and getting them to refine their submissions, answer questions that the committee had come up with, really dig deep and make sure that all 4 of these would be viable options to go in. And I then presented those 4 submissions back to the committee again on May 9th. There was lots of discussion by the committee around durability, effectiveness in the venue, abstraction and realism. That was a big discussion. How abstract did we want to go? How realistic did we want the pieces to be? And then also, how does it compare in the marketplace? A lot of cities that are close to us now have sculpture collections, and what were theirs looking like? It took a lot of discussion, but we figured it out, and we ended up selecting CJ Wrench of CJ Wrench Design Studio in Hood River, Oregon. CJ is fantastic, and this design studio is fantastic. So I was personally very pleased that's who made the cut. CJ has an extensive resume and has worked with other municipalities across the country, as a matter of fact. And he's done large-scale work all the way from the Northwest down to Florida. And as a matter of fact, CJ has participated in Art on Parade. So 2 of his pieces have been selected before through the Art on Parade process to be in the temporary collection out there, so we know our citizens also like it. So that's good. His team includes a designer, a fabricator, and an engineer. So that was also another big plus, is that we're not just dealing with somebody that has great ideas, but it's a team that knows how to install something that's going to last and also meet the needs of folks like Hawkins Development. And again, he's great to work with. What he presented to us was a concept. So what you have in your packet is not the exact design. These are concepts of what are called native grasses. I think think right now he's calling it natives, but that title's going to change. But the idea is that, and I think the committee really was drawn in by the fact that it is a bit abstract, because obviously grass is not that tall, but it does have a context. It has a context to where we are, who we are, and so it was a nice marriage of something that's really artistic, but something that also you can actually communicate it to somebody, or that when they walk up to look at it, they'll actually know what it is. It's very large scale. We're talking 8 to 25 feet tall. As a matter of fact, when we did a site visit out there, some of these may be taller than some of the the lighting that's out there, which is cool. The medium itself is going to be aged steel, and then the leaves actually are going to be either acrylic or glass. Both of them have pluses and minuses that are colorful. So when the light shines through it during the day, it'll actually create some light on the ground, and then at night the structure looks really, really cool with the lighting shining on it. The cool thing about the aged steel is that it's extremely durable. Basically what it does is it seals itself, and so it'll last for many, many, many decades. And on top of that, whenever there is possibly some vandalism, all you do is you go up and you sand it off and you re-age it real quick, and then it's done. So that's easy. What we did is, after we selected CJ, we've now narrowed the committee down to a smaller group of 5, just so that we can move a little quicker. It's easier to get the meetings together. And that 5 is Councilmember Dodge. We have Krista May from NURA, Eric Enzi from Planning at the City, Jennifer Nevins, who's on the Northglenn Arts and Humanities Foundation, which, by the way, she's also a landscape architect, so she's been great for this because she can talk in depth about the actual native grasses. And then, of course, Jacob Hawkins from the development. And then Amanda and I are both administrating the project, so we're there participating all along. It just so happened that we selected CJ right after that meeting, and he just happened to be in Colorado doing so he's from Oregon. He was in Colorado doing an installation in Carbondale. So last Tuesday night, I was like, well, let me see if I can get the committee together, and we were able to, so that all of them got to meet him, which was great. So we sat down and had a great discussion. Before the meeting, I was able to meet with CJ, do a site visit, and really get out there and see what we're dealing with, so that he's able to better communicate with his engineers and create a design that's going to work. When we met with the committee on Tuesday night, we talked in depth about his process, about the timeline, also around the engineering of it. That made Jake Hawkins very comfortable. They spoke the same language. And the cool thing, too, was CJ was able to bring examples of the leaves because he's done similar projects like this. The pictures in there that look real, the actual photos, he's able to bring some of those so that people could actually touch it and feel it and see what we're actually talking about.
So tell me about those. How
Yeah.
big are they?
So the size is still to be determined based on, so the stalk of the grass is going to be anywhere between 18 to 25 feet. So what'll happen then is, and this is part of those next steps, is he's dealing with engineering, especially for wind loads in Colorado specifically, to make sure that, and I think right now we're dealing with 120 miles per hour at 3-second gusts. So the engineer's able to tell him what these can withstand, and that'll help determine. The size of the leaves are usually around that, maybe anywhere between 1 foot to 2 feet long. And again, you're seeing these, you won't be able to touch them because we want to make sure the kids aren't out there tearing them off and all that kind of stuff. So they're going to be high enough that they're out of reach, and then large enough to represent the grass, but also create the effect with the lighting and all that kind of stuff. So they probably will vary, but probably not be anything bigger than maybe 2 feet, and then attached to the stalk.
Well, I was just curious because this one picture down here kind of shows the leaves lower.
You're right in line with what the committee was talking about. Absolutely. That was one of the pieces of feedback that we got from the concept, is people just wanted to make sure that nobody was walking into them or kids were playing with them or that kind of thing. Let's see. And CJ what was cool is he was able to kind of talk about his resume directly to the committee so that they could ask questions about, what his past experience is, and it's significant. So specifically about next steps, the NHF is contracting the artists, so we're doing this the same way we work with all of the artists in the city. So the foundation actually contracts them. All of the monies will flow through the foundation. And I've been working also with the city lawyer to create the easement for Hawkins Development. In a nutshell, the foundation will continue to maintain the sculpture like we do the rest of our collection. However, Hawkins Development will take care of the pad and the lighting. And so the easement's going to clearly define all of that. I'm here to update you guys, and we'll continue to do so. CJ, again, is working with the engineer right now, actually, as we speak, to get those things specified. He then is going to be working remotely with the committee to clarify what grasses we're going to choose. Believe it or not, there's like a 600-page book out there on Colorado native grasses. I don't know who spends 5 years writing a book like that, but we have it, and it's great. And so he's kind of already narrowed it down to 10? 12, and the committee's going to narrow it down to 6. He's going to take those 6 and come up with mock-ups, which we will then kind of select and narrow that down to the final 4. So each pad will get a specific type of grass. So not all 4 will be uniform, because we want to make sure there is some variation there. And let's see. Oh, and then we'll continue to manage the timeline throughout the summer. Believe it or not, we're going to have this installed in September. So we're hoping to do a public dedication this year. The one thing to our advantage with him living in Oregon is he does not want to come over the passes during the winter. So he wants to get this done before winter. So, and right now, we're really looking good, especially having that meeting last Tuesday was extremely helpful. So that, folks, is it in a nutshell, but I am available for questions.
Questions? Yes, okay, well, Kyle.
One, I love the grasses, I love the concept, I think you guys are hitting it out of the park with that.
Oh, good.
Something that I want to bring up is I love this tree.
Oh, I know. We all
I love it.
Story about that tree.
So, and I've heard stories about it. I want to put it out there that I love it. And I have an idea, and I'd like you to hear it out.
Yes, sir.
So we were allocated, or the city, or I'm not quite sure how it was, but we talked about it for a long time, and then it just kind of got forgotten about. There's that pad site right on the corner that was supposed to be a park, or supposed to be welcoming sign, whatever that was supposed to be.
The plaza.
The plaza. And during the development of that project, one of our larger cottonwood trees was cut down.
Right.
Which, upset some people. Now, I just think that this particular tree might make a perfect replacement for that cottonwood tree being cut down. And I just imagine coming around that corner and seeing that tree lit up at night, and I think it would be beautiful. And I've heard that the artist may not be willing to make that tree again, but I like the idea, and I love that tree, and I love the idea of the grasses and this tree on
like
page
that tree?
4.
Yeah.
voted, we all love the tree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it
Well,
is
if I could, so everybody loves the tree, and actually that is a big sales point for the grasses, right? So he's using the same style, as the tree to do the grasses. So it was definitely a big plus. There was even a suggestion that maybe for the RTD stop that we do a similar thing with the tree. So I don't actually know that the artist would not do a tree. But sort of where we went with that was just to give you an idea, that specific tree cost about $200,000 to produce. So
I wasn't aware of the cost when I saw
that's okay.
it.
And it is huge. It is magnificently large, and it is extremely popular. I forget what town that is in, but people absolutely love it. So I don't know that the tree idea is going to go away as far as it may remain in discussions, especially with the RTD stop. But as far as the plaza is concerned, I think that...
Is there already discussions going on for Plaza? What we're going to do with that? No?
No, we
yet.
basically just planted it with grasses within the last year.
We could plant a tree.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Plaza work into
I can
the
get a sapling for less than $200.
Sorry.
Does the plaza work into the civic center master plan? Is that part of why we stopped too? Because we didn't want to develop it with possibility?
It does, and if I'm recalling correctly, you're talking about this area out here?
Right, yeah.
Yes, so anything kind of south of that line is going to be part of the Civic Campus Master Plan, which is why we didn't do anything more than just plant grass on it now.
It was just an idea that we lost a tree and
Yeah.
I really like that other tree.
There you go.
200
Just so you know, we've been using that tree that got cut down, by the way. We've used it for some pedestals, so it's living with us still a little bit. But no, and yeah, to the city manager's point, I think with the new civic master plan, that area was kind of put on hold because there might be some other opportunities for some larger scale stuff with the new plan.
I just want to say that it's so awesome to see you so excited to talk about this. I mean, I actually got myself all, okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate you for that.
Well, like I said, I love my job. This stuff is really exciting to me. What's cool too is that, it's not easy coming out on a Tuesday night and, spending time working on certain projects. But, the committee got together and had a good time, right, Chief? I think we had a good time. And what was great was the consensus, even though art is incredibly subjective. It's difficult to kind of get things narrowed down, and I don't know that everybody thought it was the perfect thing, but everybody thought it was the best decision for what was submitted. So I'm also excited because of the, with the new city branding, with the new city website, with all these exciting things happening in these large events. This is just another sort of feather in our cap where, the current collection right now is a little under $500,000, which is substantial for a city this size. This is a $100,000 project being added to that total. So it's really something that the city gets to brag about. So,
Any other questions or comments?
I
Yep.
also have a comment, just because I was on the committee, and you are a great project coordinator, and I am so glad that the committee actually honed in on the native grasses, because like you said, everybody's on a different wavelength, and I think that the native grasses really complement the promenade, and I think that Jacob Hawkins was very excited about that, because there are probably a few selections he might not have wanted there.
Yeah.
So I think we picked the best concept for the Webster Lake Promenade.
yeah,
I think it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, it'd be pretty.
great.
Jim, did you?
Well, I was just going to add that I thought this was a very unique partnership between NURA, the city, the developer, the foundation. I think this is something we're going to be able to repeat at the civic campus as well. Do something pretty similar, and bigger space for more art potentially. So.
All right.
Absolutely.
Anybody else here? Nope. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you for having me
Appreciate
tonight,
it.
guys.
Thank you,
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay. All
I'll bring
right.
my artwork by,
City Hall space assessment. David. Okay.
So as David's walking up, I just want to introduce this briefly. So we put this on our work plan for 2017, and really the intent of it was just to identify funding for 2018. So that's really why we're here tonight, is to let you know where we're going with the City Hall space assessment. We're calling it Phase 2 essentially, because we already did Phase 1, which led to the police department moving out next year into the Justice Center. And so we've got to figure out, really by the 2018 budget, what money we might need to put into this building in late 2018, with the bulk of the expenditure really being in 2019. And so I'll kick it over to David, unless I said everything I say. I'm sorry.
Well, that was pretty short.
You could highlight what SEH put together for us at least. Sorry.
Okay, David.
Well, as the city manager said, we're here, we got an early budget planning process, and I just want to back up a little bit, because if you notice here, we have SEH here as our recommending consultant. Just to refresh council's memory, they were a sub-consultant, the Architects Design Group, ADG, who worked on the initial space assessment for the police and the courts, and that graduated into an assessment basically of all the city services being provided here out of City Hall. So they're ultimately familiar with city staff, the building, and when we get around to doing this, I believe that they'd be a very good group to start this, since they're so familiar with the project. So having said that, I did ask them to come in and talk to me, and they've got two major categories here: space planning, interior improvements, and of course, a little more money would be exterior alterations, repair, and maintenance. So I guess what I'd like to get from council tonight is your flavor for what level of improvements that you would be tolerant to for staff to operate out of this building for potentially another 6 to 8 years. So I can read these down. I'm just looking for some guidance. We're looking for a budget placeholder, and that depends on really what you say to me.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
So before you get going, because you even mentioned it, and if I remember correctly, when we were looking at PD and the analysis, it was my understanding that we looked at the entire building at that time. Am I incorrect?
No, you are absolutely correct. They did a visual, mechanical, electrical, plumbing inspection of the building. So then, by that I mean they didn't do any destructive testing, getting into the walls and things like that. Yes, they did do that.
So I guess I'm confused on what we're getting here compared to what we got when they came in last time.
It would basically be just, well, what they did is they looked at what each department needed for space, and we won't be able to build a city hall for a number of years right now, and the police will be vacating a large amount of usable space, some space in the back that's below grade. It's probably not that usable, maybe storage, but we are packed into this building, and for a few years we could expand and use some of these areas over in the front here that have access to the back here, more window space, without a whole lot of alterations on the exterior portion of the building. Just make it more usable for the staff that are currently providing services and will do so while we're putting in the city campus master plan. We're implementing that. So yes, you are correct.
I'm still struggling to follow, David, because it sounds like basically we're trying to figure out if any departments upstairs can come down here, any departments maybe from O&E can come over here. Essentially, is that what we're trying to figure out? How do we maximize the use of the space that PD is going to be vacating?
Or you better utilize it, maybe not maximize. Better utilize the space while we can, for a number of years. The services provided out here, we're pretty jam-packed into here.
And I'm not arguing that. I'm wondering, so for $40,000, what is this company giving us that we couldn't just do as a staff and say, okay, you know, that makes sense for this department or these employees to be relocated downstairs.
The low end, the 25,000, be more or less helping facilitate between departments and get, based on other municipal layouts and setups and how they provide service, and just facilitating that group. I don't think there's anything that would perceive that we could work that, but I think it's better just to have an impartial professional working with all the department heads and finding out and trying to determine what would be the best way to utilize the space. I'm not necessarily saying max and out, but just the best utilize. That would be the low end, maybe $25,000. That's just the initial estimates here. The higher end would be more of a looking at the roof. I mean, I can certainly attest that I get new tiles put in my office every time it rains because I get a leaky roof up there. That's a major issue. If the space, the best utilization of the space was potentially making some more window space and making it more office friendly, bringing more natural light into the building, that might be in the second category of a more expensive fix. So, I know a couple of years ago we came to council with a backup generator here at the tune of basically $250,000, and at this particular point in time we can't do all of these things at once, but the city hall is probably going to be in service for another eight years or so. So I guess we're here to ask council is do you want to provide any level of I guess professional planning here to maximize, to best utilize the departments that are still going to be operating out of this building when the police and courts move out of here.
To add to that too, I think the thought process, I mean, David talks about facilitating between the departments, and obviously we're, as a leadership team, going to do that as well, but really to even potentially come up with, dare I say, line drawings, concepts about, well, if this department moves here, here's how we would need to reconfigure this room, and then does it bleed into, well, now we need HVAC changes because of that, or we need different returns or different technologies. So, I mean, it's going to evolve, I guess, and that's why we've got the range in here, but really it's to get everyone together and figure out, who's going to go where and how do we maximize the efficiency of the space. I think a lot of you would probably agree if we go upstairs, utility billing is right in the front door, which where it ends up staying, but there's a lot of services we provide that people kind of have to find their way, whether it be building or HR. A lot of people looking for HR, for jobs and so forth, and we think we can have more forward-facing customer service functions and have maybe some of the back office things where they should be in the back office. Debbie's not here, but we've got our ED suite kind of in the private secured area back where the city manager is and the city clerk and so forth. So a lot of different things that we'd be looking at moving around.
And I've thrown this out, and I'll just share with everybody, we were talking the other day, we're already looking at retrofitting, the sound down here, which is gonna cost a lot of money. And police department's gonna be moving, it's pretty much gonna be vacant down here unless you move it. But what about, have you ever thought about moving the council chambers upstairs? And I mentioned that to you, but it seems to me like it would be easier. Right now we're here because the police department is close by. Well, the police department's gonna be gone. And maybe because we're gonna be throwing all that money into sound systems and a lot of other things, and there's space upstairs, maybe some of those people could, the departments could come down. I'm just thinking, maybe that's a better fit for the council, because this is not a good area for the council chambers at all.
It's a good question. I think that one of the questions SCH asked us, is like, well, what's your budget? And I said, I really don't have any idea at this point.
Right.
Because are we talking about retrofitting existing spaces and maybe moving a few walls around? Or are we talking about totally relocating
Right.
large spaces like this, popping exterior windows on other walls and so forth? And so we really need to understand kind of the order of magnitude
Right.
As they get into it. But that can definitely be on the list. We can have them, see if that's even an alternative upstairs somewhere.
Yeah, it's a thought, that was a thought, so, and just as you talked about the budget, then we have to look at the revenues and how things are flowing, and can we really afford to build a city hall in 8 years? I'm just throwing that out there, so, for me, that's a question, so, because I'm thinking the rec center is probably one of the first things we want to be doing.
Well, yeah, as we outlined with the civic campus, the only real solution we identified so far is how we do phase one, which is the rec center, senior center, and theater. And that there's a lot of other variables, private development, that would probably need to be included in that equation before we could do a city hall.
Right.
And right now, I think the master plan says 8 to 10 years.
Right, so just add a few more years, but anyway, I just wanted to throw that out, because I think this is there's not much in here. We have kind of a skeleton area, you've got the dais and, that's it. So we've got large spaces up there if you were starting to move people around. And like you said, with the economic development is hidden basically. So in that whole area between all those offices, that's a lot of empty space. In planning, there's a lot of room in there.
It's very inefficient.
It is very inefficient.
There's a lot of, dare I say, like foyers or lobbies within each office suite that are just right in the middle, and you don't really, it's not even a usable area.
No, it's
a lot of spaces. That's right.
Yes, Becky?
In my opinion, I think that we need to have someone else take this piece and have us get to a point where we can make those kind of decisions.
Right.
Our staff itself has 5 million projects going on right now. And I don't think it's, I would really like to design my own workspace. And since it's in the family room, I really did. But I think that it's better left outside of our leadership team, and that is not, I'm not slamming you, bagging on you, or anything in group. I just think that we need to let someone else take the lead on that. And you have a lot. And that's my 2 cents.
Anybody?
It's going to turn into a fight.
Yeah, most definitely. Because I want flowers on that wall.
Oh, okay. I wanted to make sure that, did you want to?
Yeah, I would. So I would definitely not want to slight the remaining departments that are in this building, like they're not as important as the police department that, is getting a brand new building. But what I'm thinking is that we've talked before about retrofitting this building, and it always comes up that it's so much more expensive than a new building. So I'm worried about the price tag, and I'm worried about the price tag when we have another building that we're talking about building, the city hall in, 8,
Right.
10, whatever, but it is in the line of projects that we have to work on. So I'm not sure how much buy-in I have on that. I mean, I want to do the study because I do want to see what people come up with as far as the design. I have no idea. The money will be the interesting part, I guess, for me, is all I can say.
Well, yeah, the first step is the planning piece, and,
Right.
with what I've heard today, we can certainly, gear this to, not creating a whole lot of money here that potentially could be a sunk cost in a short amount of time. I mean, we're cognizant of that, and all we're trying to do is maximize some value out of the building to get the best out of the remaining useful life.
Anybody else?
I was actually thinking about moving it upstairs too.
Were you? Mercy.
Antonio?
I favor the study, and I think it's important to, look at the whole picture, because we don't know what's going to happen in 8 years or in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a long time before we ever see a new city hall. It may be sooner, but I think we need to look at it.
Yep.
Mercy.
So I think I'd be somewhat in favor of the study just because I think it would be challenging. One department might really be advocating for their space and another department might really need it. So I can see where not having staff getting in the middle of that could be an important part. But I also think, and I've said this before, when we did the assessment and we made the decision to move the police department, words like deplorable conditions were used down here. And I would not approve of anything that came forward to me that put staff down here with no changes. We said it wasn't good enough for one department and certainly not good enough to move another department. So if the option was, we don't have the money, then I say close up, because I'm not gonna move someone from upstairs down to a place that we said was deplorable.
Yeah.
That just will not fly for me.
Yeah, and just to address that, Marcy, staff been very cognizant of the fact of how cramped the police department here, and we had no intention of trying to pack everybody in there. If there was any significant move downstairs other than the usable lit space currently, then that would be other types of improvements like putting windows in the buildings, which would be another step and another cost. And I'm hearing tonight at council that let's do the study and see where the space planning goes, certainly with the caveat that we're not putting some other department down here that do the same thing the police had for the last 40 years. That's well understood.
In a perfect world, what my vision of how this would turn out is that we would have probably a very, high cost dollar items and go down from there, or go up from there, if you will, and then a realistic time frame of how long it would take to amortize those investments. So we're not going to put, $10 million into a building that we're going to be vacating potentially in 8 to 10 years. That's not, realistic. We can build a new city hall for that potentially. So that's the balancing act we're definitely going to be looking at.
Okay. Anybody else? All right then. Think it's a go?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so next we have audio upgrade.
So I'll speak less to introduce this so I don't steal Bob's thunder, but I would say, in my experience, both my prior tenure and currently, this is the most comprehensive approach we've had to address this issue. I want to commend Bob publicly for the effort that he's put into this. We've actually had people out that have expertise in this area looking at this room. And so we've got a wide range of costs here, as you can see, but I think we've got a pretty good recommendation of how to move forward, with the caveat that the room stays here. If it goes upstairs, then we want to reconsider that tonight. But I'll kick it over to Bob and walk through what he's put together here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
At the March 6th study session, you directed us to issue an RFP to upgrade the audio system in council chambers. An RFP was issued and the city received 4 responses. The RFP identified the current equipment in use, details about the council chambers, the sound quality issues. A link was provided to the city's video archive so that the vendors could review council meeting study sessions, hear the sound issues. Vendors were asked to propose improvements to the sound quality on the recording as well as in the audience area and council chambers. And I'll talk a little about each proposal, and then we'll look at the table on page 3 of the memo to kind of review the equipment and the proposals. 5280 Digital, their cost was $177,400. They suggested some improvements in the narrative of their proposal, but including a ceiling-mounted mic array, a wireless mic system using gooseneck mics, and stated that they would attend a council meeting, evaluate the current system, engineer a complete system based on the city's requirements. They didn't do this before they responded to the RFP. They provided limited details in their proposal. They also proposed some equipment that was beyond the scope of the RFP. Audiovisual Innovation, their cost was $56,809. They completed a detailed analysis of our existing equipment that included listening to recordings. They came in the room, captured audio spectrum measurements with mics being used with the air conditioning on and off to get room noise. They also checked all the microphone types. I guess it's really important you can't mix and match directional microphones with omnidirectional microphones to verify that they were all the same type, which they were. They connected a laptop to the digital signal processor that's referred to the DSP. That's basically the brains of the system. It's the important piece of equipment that has filters that you can program to take out the sounds you don't want to pass through and enhance the sounds you do want to pass through. So they had a pretty good idea of the issues with our existing system. They provided the most complete proposal to address all areas identified and included design, engineering, equipment, and installation of the system. Advanced Network Management, their cost was $18,570. They provided limited details. The actual proposal part of their response was only a few paragraphs. They proposed the least amount of equipment to be replaced, and it didn't appear they did any real analysis outside of the information gathered in the RFP. And Ford Audiovisual Systems, their cost was $29,994. They came on site to view the equipment in the room. They provided a detailed proposal that included equipment, programming, and installation of the system. They suggested acoustic paneling, but didn't include it in their proposal. So if we look at page 3, we can kind of go through the equipment and see how it breaks out. That digital signal processor, that's the important piece of the system. They all propose to replace ours. Ours is older and has limited programming functionality. The amplifier is connected to the DSP. Audio-Visual Innovation suggested replacing the amplifier to utilize all the features of the new DSP. No one else proposed the amplifier replacement. The control system is what's used to set presets for the different configurations in the room. So when we're in a study session setup, it's just a matter of setting the preset for that configuration. Council chambers, or I'm sorry, a council meeting or court proceedings. So it would make it real easy to change in between the different presets for room configuration. Ceiling speakers, that's going to affect the sound for the audience in the room. We currently have 10 speakers with 6 zones. Audio-Visual Innovation proposed replacing all the speakers and adding 2 more and increasing the zones from 4 to 6 to better utilize where the sound is placed in the room. Ford Audio-Visual Video Systems, they proposed 6 speakers. I'm not sure why, that's less than we currently have. So I didn't put anything in the RFP about, I didn't feel a real consensus on what council wanted as far as microphone types. I left it up to the vendors to suggest what they, there's push to talk, there's the gooseneck microphones. It was interesting because they all suggested or proposed for these study sessions is a ceiling microphone array. And what that is it's a 2x2 panel that replaces a ceiling tile, and it has 8 directional lobes. So basically, all these microphones would go away, and those 2 ceiling tiles would pick up sounds. And the benefit to that is paper rustling or things that the mics pick up when they're close to you. That's not a good thing. The other thing is some people being close to the microphone, some being further away. That would put us all the same distance from the microphone. And so I thought that was pretty unique. Ford Audio Video Systems suggested 1. They thought 1 was enough. I question that based on what I was told by Audio Visual Innovation. It's not a 1-for-1. 8 lobes doesn't translate to replace 8 mics, but it's 8 directions. Whether 1 would pick up everybody equally, I'm not sure about that. The acoustic paneling that was suggested by 5280 and Ford Audio Visual, it was included in Audio Visual Innovation. If you listen, the room sounds tinny. There's a lot of sound that moves off these walls, and the system picks that back up. That adds to the feedback in the system. Acoustic paneling absorbs that, so it gives a better sound overall. And then the interesting thing on the microphones is, so 5280, they proposed 14, microphones that were digital display units that also had voting systems in it, beyond what we asked for. Those would be used on the dais, and then the existing microphones would be used in a study session, although they suggested a microphone array, but it's not included in their price. The Audiovisual Innovations, they would have 2 ceiling arrays for out here and use the existing mics on the dais. Advanced Network Management, they proposed using the same mics and 2 arrays for study sessions. Ford Audio Visual suggested 1 ceiling array and replacing the mics up there. I followed up with them and asked them why that was. And they said basically just because the mics are 10 years old, they feel like they could provide a more fully warranted system by replacing the microphones. And then the RFP specifically asked to include a wireless handheld microphone. That would be for presenters that are presenting away from a microphone. Audiovisual Innovation included 1, and so did Ford Video Systems. So that kind of gives you an idea of the differences in the proposal. I can answer questions about that, or I could talk about the recommendation we came up with.
Do we have questions at this point? Yes.
I kind of do. When you were talking about the panels, and the 8, whatever you called them, I apologize. Is that going to pick up, if we went that way, would that pick up background crowd, I like to call it crowd noise? If people are in the back over there having conversations and stuff, is that going to pick that up along with ours?
Potentially, I would believe that they would probably direct them more to where these tables are set up, and we don't have a lot of audience seating beyond that, so I think the idea would be that they would be set generally more forward in the room, and the idea is to pick up the speakers at the tables.
Anyone else?
Do you know if any of them have done a council chamber before?
Yeah, all of them have.
Yeah. And has Audio Visual done one that has the ceiling array microphone that we might be able to listen? And I get it, the dynamic of everybody's rooms are different, but I'm just curious how well the sound picks up on those.
They didn't show, in their, the references they had, they didn't have ceiling arrays. None of them did that proposed them, because I was really curious about that too. I'd like to see one where they're actually in use. I could follow up and find that out if we want to
Just be
find that
curious,
out.
and I do understand our room is not great, so.
Kyle?
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a way to integrate into our current system? Because I understand that it sounds like a lot of them were saying that we should just keep our current microphones, but is there a way to integrate at all the push to talk into the current system, or is it too antiquated to do that, or would you have to get an entire new microphone system?
Yeah, that's just a different technology. Those microphones could be proposed, but nobody proposed those.
All right, anyone else? All right, what, you want to go through that?
So in the recommendation, I felt like audiovisual innovation, they definitely put the most work beforehand into analyzing our system, what's going on, understanding the sound. They also provided equipment that addressed all issues that I understand them to be, which is mainly we want to improve the audio recordings, which is for the cable channel as well as listening on the internet, but then also in the room. And we have different dynamics at times when, for a number of meetings, we don't have very many people attending, and then you'll have a big issue where you'll get a lot of residents show up and you can't hear in the back, So addressing both of those, and they did that with their speakers. Now, one thing in their proposal, they had a phase proposal because they recommended or suggested 5,000 to reprogram our original DSP. They said they could get some sound improvements out of that, and then it would take about 8 to 10 weeks to order the equipment and do the installation. Jim and I talked about it and felt like that was worth removing from their proposal. I was told that our DSP has limited programming, and to put 5,000 into something that's going to give us 8 to 10 weeks when we have basically a couple meetings a month didn't seem worth it. So we could, and they agreed that they would be willing to drop that out and it wouldn't affect the rest of their proposal. So
And that was audio visuals?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That would bring their proposal down to 51,855. And we feel like that would provide the best opportunity to really improve the sound, especially for the multiple ways this room is used.
Carol, did you?
You know, Bob, the only thing I can say about that little area where you're talking about that they said if they reprogrammed the current DSP, it would provide immediate improvement, is I wish we had known that years ago. I mean, if it would have provided something that made it better for the residents to hear it, that would have been nice to know, because it was not a very high price tag, $5,000.
Yeah, I will tell you, it's been more than 5 years ago. We did have the DSP reprogrammed. We hired a consultant to come out and reprogram it, and it may have improved it. It's hard, I don't know from then to now, and sound is a funny thing, It's hard to, improvements aren't good and bad. It's not on and off, It's a little better, and so we have had it done, but the information I got from two of the consultants was that our system is our DSP is pretty limited. They have filters to filter out, like I said, there's frequencies that are above the human voice that they can filter out, and then the low frequencies that come from room noise is the other thing to filter out, and there's what they call gain before feedback. And if you want to increase the gain as high as you can before you get feedback from the speakers squelching at us. And right now, I have the speakers turned way down, because if you get very loud in the system and have the speakers up, you get feedback. And with a higher end DSP, they're saying we can do that.
Kyle?
With the Comcast grant, the $50,000 Comcast grant, I'm seeing that $40,000 is going to be spent on the Channel 8 equipment, and I know that we implemented the new fee on the Comcast, and so I'm not quite sure of the payback, because it's not really a grant. That $50,000 is something that we have to pay back, and so are these improvements something that can be covered by that fee once that $50,000 is paid back, and do we know kind of what the revenue that's coming in for that?
So we'd estimated the PEG fee at around $36,000 a year, and so we essentially pledged all of that to Comcast until we got to $50,000. So we anticipate that's 15 months or so. We would have that paid off. And the reason we didn't necessarily want to or recommend using those funds for this effort is that, number one, we only have 10,000 left. But secondly, we thought that process would take longer than maybe you wanted this one to. Because we're going to do a procurement for those.
Could the city essentially loan the money for that and be reimbursed by the PEG down the road once the grant's paid off? Or what do you call it, a grant? Grants don't get paid off.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be accounting. I mean, we basically just fund it out of the general fund, and then when it's paid off, then we're going to make $36,000 a year on PEG fee that could essentially
But the
reimburse.
PEG fee can only be used for things like this, is what I'm wondering. And so can it come back in and say, okay, the city, we need this done sooner than later, come back in and essentially reimburse the city with those PEG funds?
We could.
Can you
we
do
could.
that?
Yeah, you can use it for capital, you can use it for content. Our intent is to start to use some of that money for content development too.
And the other thing too is to
Okay.
build up some for equipment replacement in the future. I mean, this is a $40,000 investment now for equipment that's original from the time we started Comcast. So, it went way too long, and that's the idea, is to not get in that situation again. So to have some funding to where maybe it's 7 years is the life of that equipment, that there's some funding to replace the pieces that need to be replaced.
And Bob, is the city looking at, or Jim, is the city looking at the live features of streaming council meetings and using PEG funds to help out with that potentially?
Yes, Margot's been coordinating actually with the communications people in Aurora, and they've actually come up here and they've been really, really helpful. We're trying to make sure that when we do the procurement for the equipment, that the scope that we put out and the RFP that we put out is going to enable us to do that live streaming. So we're doing the hardware piece first, and making sure that the hardware we get can do what we want it to do.
If in fact, because we were talking about the assessment for the space, if in fact it's decided that we move council chambers, can this equipment be moved? I mean, it's going to be relatively new.
Equipment could definitely be moved. It's likely if the configuration of the room changes, there may have to be additional equipment or maybe some changes to equipment.
But basically,
Yeah, but the equipment could be moved, sure.
anyone else? Oh, Jordan.
So the acoustic microphone, is that this, or?
Right.
Okay, and so with us not getting any of that, we're still gonna get the sound quality much higher, what we see in the days?
That's what they're saying, is that it's not so much the microphones that are the problem, it's the bad sound that's coming in, and then us not being able to increase the volume to pick up on the microphone without getting feedback. So we can't turn the mics up enough to pick that up. With everyone seated the way they are on these, there's not a lot we could do up there. They could propose ceiling array microphones up there as well. Nobody did. But it would be really the DSP is the piece that should improve the sound quality using those existing mics.
Do we still have to be 8 inches away from the mic for it to properly pick up?
That's the spec from Shure, the mic manufacturer. That's what they say. So that's where you're going to get the most consistent sound. We won't be able to know until we see it, but we could still see differences, and we could still hear from residents where some of the people that have booming voices, like Mr. Brown, you can hear him if the mic's further away. And then Marcy, sometimes she's harder to hear when she's right up on it. There's just such a difference in how. And one thing I would suggest, especially for the people that speak a little quieter, is, to be closer to the mic. I mean, we never get the feeling that we need it to hear each other here, but the only way it gets out to the cable channel or the recording is what's picked up through the microphone. So that would still be the recommendation, and likely if we make these improvements, and you're saying, well, we're still hearing some of this. Now, they do provide a warranty, and audiovisual, they provided in their package is a 1-year customer care package, so they could come out within a year to do any reprogramming we need if there's some improvements. But we also may hear from them say, we need you to use the microphones in this way. I don't know, we'd have to see once we see what the improvements are like.
Becky.
Okay, I'm glad you're sitting down, because I think this is really, really good. I think that it's clear and concise and everything that I've ever asked for from you. So I'm really appreciative of the time that you put into it. When I was looking at it, the first thing I did is ruled out anybody that didn't come into the council chambers. I mean, if you don't have, boom, boom, boom. If you can't come here and see what our problem is, then, you know, move on. I tend to agree with you with your suggestion of going with audio-visual. My only concern is the little conversation that we had about taking, you know, possibly moving up there. But it wouldn't, I mean, even if we were to come up with something like that, it would be for years down the road. But I think you did a great job. I can't wait.
All right, anyone else?
You know, I just have a question on the ceiling mounted mics. Would that be able to be adjusted if they found out that that wasn't really honing in on everything very well?
What do you mean adjusted?
Like, so, well, if the volume still sounded bad when it was on TV, can they adjust the microphone somehow?
Yeah,
or is that from the processor?
Exactly. That processor can increase the gain on those microphones, and their directional, they use what's called a beam forming technology. They're supposed to literally focus a beam down to a certain area and pick up sound. My understanding is after they get it installed, we would obviously, you know, and they would program it. It's really hard to program something when it's quiet in this room, you know. We probably have to get some staff down here. We do a mock discussion in front of mics, or not in front of mics, but with the system to get them to program it in. But I imagine after a study session or a council meeting, they would have to come back and enhance it based on how the sound came through.
I just was concerned that you couldn't enhance it and then we would be stuck with something else that didn't work, that's all. But if they can adjust it, that would be great. I like that also, what Becky said, I like audio-visual innovation. I think it's good.
Anyone else? All right, Bob, I think we move
So
forward with
just
that.
just to clarify, because I want to make sure we're moving forward properly. So in terms of the timing of the City Hall remodel, obviously the police department will not be out of here until the end of next year. We would need to budget in 2019. I look at that as, at a minimum, we've got 2 years probably with whatever system we go with now. And it sounds like we're going to have a warranty, obviously, on the hardware that if we need to move some things, there might be obviously some additional cost of moving things at some point in the future, but $50,000 for a couple years, and if we're not totally throwing away all that money in 2 years, I think that's a pretty good amortization of what we're looking to do.
And we've had this problem for quite a while, so
Absolutely.
this is something that we really need to do, so.
So being that it's just over the manager's signature limit, then a resolution would come back for your approval.
At the 51,855.
Okay, all right. We're good. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks,
All
Bob.
right, next we have, I'm going to throw this to you because it has
Sure.
public safety, so I'm not sure
Right.
whom is going to speak about this. So,
Okay. So I just want to walk through the memo briefly to explain why this is on the agenda tonight, and then I'll obviously turn over to the mayor and the council to have discussion. Over the last few weeks, I've had a couple council members contact me about having collective bargaining for public safety. And in talking with Mr. Hoffman, he was willing to do some research so you could come back and have a real robust policy discussion about that. But in his opinion, it was going to take much more than a couple of hours to do that. And so really the only question that's in front of you tonight is, do you want to authorize Mr. Hoffman to go and do that research? And if so, we'll get that direction tonight. And then I did talk to him earlier today, and we could be back as early as July 10th. Then in an executive session would be the appropriate place, since this would be in the spirit of contract negotiations. And in the alternative, if you chose not to give him that direction, then we'd have to go down a different path, I guess. But we don't have a recommendation tonight. It's really just framing the issue for you. And there's some details about schedule and time implications and what that would mean So I'll go from there.
So what did you mean by you would have to go down a different path? What did you mean by that? I'm just curious. Collective bargaining or
Not.
not? I mean, well, I
Really?
just want to make
Yeah.
sure that I'm understanding.
Yeah, no,
You know,
no, I
what you're
didn't mean to
saying.
mince words there. It's really, like I've said here, it's either reaching consensus to tell Corey to do this work or not.
Okay.
And if it's or not, then
Okay,
we'd
got it.
have to have a different discussion.
I was just
Yeah.
asking the question.
I
Okay.
have a question. You said a couple city council members have approached you. But in the memo, it says 2 hours is more than one city council member can direct the city attorney to do.
Correct.
So is it one city council member, or is it two, or is it three?
So what I was stating there is that there's been more than one that has contacted me and Mr. Hoffman, but in order for one council member to direct the city attorney to do more than 2 hours worth of work, it requires a consensus.
Okay. So two, pretty much.
They
Yes.
still need a consensus.
There's not,
I know.
there's not a majority that have said, go
Right,
do this work
okay.
yet. That's correct.
Well, and I brought it up, and the reason I brought it up is I saw Thornton just went to collective bargaining, and Westminster Fire just went to collective bargaining, and so it was something that I would be curious if our police officers wanted to do. And I did approach the city manager and the city attorney to see what that might look like, and was told to look into it would be more than 2 hours, and so that's why I requested that it come to the council tonight to see if we can get a consensus to look into it more and see what it looks like from a city's perspective.
So I'm wondering, you know, I understand that Thornton and Westminster are looking at it, but we work very hard with our police department and actually all our employees to provide the best work environment and pay that we have. So I'm wondering, we don't have a problem here, and at least not that I'm aware of. So I'm wondering why we would entertain this.
So I think, like you said, you know, neighboring cities have looked into it, and I think that, and I'm just speaking for myself at this point, but in my opinion, I think that we've seen our police department come back and make some requests, you know, regarding their pay and the structure of the pay and the staffing, and there's also benefits that our department doesn't have that some other departments do have. And so those are the things that came up to me and made me wonder if this is something that Northglenn would want, or the Northglenn police officers would want. And so that's the question that I really posed. If they don't want it, then that's fine too, but I say give them the option, and if they do want it, then I think that it's something that we should look into. And so that's where I'm at, and I think that as a city, we have to be prepared if it is something that they do want, to say, what is that going to look like from our perspective, and so.
So then my next question is, and I'm going to ask you, you know, is there any conversation in the police department about collective bargaining or any rumbling, or do they want it? I mean, or what's going on? I mean, I'm serious. I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting put on the spot there, Bob.
Sorry, Jim, but I'm wondering.
This was through our FOP, and several council members, I think they discuss it, and there is, you know, talk. I mean, you hear it from, you know, Thornton's going to it, Westminster Fire went to it. So there is rumblings within the organization of collective bargaining. I haven't done a vote. I guess the FOP, I mean, Kyle, you've talked to.
So I think the FOP is looking into it, from what I'm hearing, and so they're trying to get that same answer from their guys. Is this something they want, or is it something they don't want? And so I know that that's what they're trying to figure out right now, and so you can kind of see the timeline on this, and you know that it would have to be a ballot initiative, and so it's something that needs to be timely. And so I'm not sure if there's been, and I don't think there's been an official vote or anything like that, but I mean, just talking to the FOP, you do hear the rumblings that this is something that, you know, they're seeing happening in other communities, and you know, and those police officers are benefiting from that. They're getting benefits that they didn't have before. They're getting, you know, defined benefits that will be with them and their family forever. that option. They're getting pay that they feel is adequate. They're getting the staffing that they feel is adequate. And those are the things that I think, for me, when I look at it, that are the most important. To make sure that our community is safe, that the people that are making our community are taken care of, and that they feel like they're being taken care of and they're being heard, and that they have the benefits, for them and their family. And so, and it's not to take anything away from any other staff members, because, it takes everyone to make this city, go round. But it's something that I think definitely probably the region and our neighbors have, brought to the forefront.
And I'm aware, and I also am aware of what they're saying, a lot of the council people in those cities are saying about this particular subject too, which I'm not going to discuss right here. But so I'm just concerned that we would even consider bringing something like this, since there really hasn't been a movement from the police department to discuss it with us.
I think they will have a formal vote, though, from what I'm understanding. They will have.
I don't know,
Yeah.
and I've actually talked to the FOP chair, and he hasn't really said that much about it, so.
So yeah, all I'm saying is I think, with the way it's set up, the 2 hours, individual, the time that it's going to take to look into this, an individual council member can't do that. And so I'm not necessarily telling people, at this time, vote for this or vote for that. All I'm saying is I would like the city to look into it and to see what it's going to look like from our perspective for collective bargaining. And I think that it's important, if it's something that our police officers are interested in, that we look into and are prepared for if it does come to fruition.
I get what you're saying, but I also know that every time we look into something, it's almost like we're buying into it. So it would be no for me, and I'll just tell you that right now. So, anybody else?
Yes, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. There's been no vote from the FOP. Chief has said he hasn't heard anything that significant. I think we can investigate afterwards. If that's something that's needed and wanted, then we can have the city attorney look into it. I'm not opposed to collective bargaining, but I think we're putting the cart before the horse. And we tend to do that sometimes.
Jordan?
Yeah, so I've been working alongside some of the Colorado FOP, the state chapter and the local chapter, and I think that they're willing to come in and educate us on what exactly is collective bargaining, because I think it's one of those terms, like saying a disparity study, that many people don't understand. They had sent over a draft article that I'll have a copy for everyone as well, just to kind of understand what their thoughts are and what we're kind of looking to do, or what after the vote. So I'll pass that around, but I can echo Councilmember Molika's remarks. I think it's something that we look into. It's an informative piece. My only concern, and that was after speaking to Corey, is based off the hours to pay him to look into this. So we're paying him from one council member saying, look into this, and exceeds 2 hours, so then we have to pay him as a consensus. Beyond that, I'm not understanding why we need to.
It's just well, maybe you can explain that. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't read the policy personally, but the way Mr. Hoffman explained it to me is that it wouldn't be appropriate necessarily for one council member to tell one of your employees to go and do a bunch of work, and in his case, it's billable, unless there was a consensus amongst at least 5 to go and expend those resources. Now, I'm a little different because I'm on salary, so I just follow up on things, but it's similar to, contacting a department director or something and say, hey, go do a bunch of research, it's going to take them 5 hours, and say, well, we need to get consensus before we do that.
Council put that in place about 3 or 4 years ago, that was a policy. There was an issue that had come up with too many hours being sent many years ago, and council elected to do that and to implement if you were going to go over 2 hours, said staff person needed to get approval.
And if I may just address Councilmember Escobel's concerns, and the reason that I asked for it to come now is because I've been told that the FOP is going to vote on this issue, And you can see from the schedule and time implications on the memo that for it to be a ballot initiative, it is very time sensitive. And so for us as a city to be prepared, if we do choose to go down that path, we need to be prepared by the end of August. And even at this point, we still won't get the report back until July 10th is what Corey's saying. And so you can see there's already a pretty tight timeline there. And so it's not necessarily trying to put anything before something else. It's just that the timeline to get it on the ballot is pretty close.
What are we putting on the ballot?
So if you're going to do collective bargaining, then it's going to be decided by the citizens. It's going to be a ballot initiative, potentially.
Yeah.
It could be potentially decided by council, but the way that majority of cities are doing things, it is a ballot initiative that's chosen by the citizens.
So,
That's even more reason, that we're putting the cart before the horse.
Becky?
and it would be able to get on the ballot next year. I understand the purpose of it, but I'm not so sure that we have to jump on it right now. If there hasn't been a vote, it's like we're gonna spend the money before the vote has happened, and we're going off of a gut, that this is the way they're gonna wanna go. I'm not sure that I'm for it at this point.
And it can be used if it can be used down the road too. I just know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you've heard, Chief, if they are or when they're voting potentially on it.
I haven't seen it. I'm not an FOP member, so.
And I can definitely ask too to see when that's scheduled. They told me it was scheduled here in the next week or so.
I'd be curious to see those results. And then, do you know how many hours that Corey would estimate going into it, that it would take him to research this?
He didn't say, he just told me that it would be over 2. And so did he tell you?
He didn't.
So, I don't know. He did say that, that it would take some research on what it might look like from a city standpoint to enter into a collective bargaining agreement and whatnot. So, and I can definitely, as soon as that vote happens, I would like to see though, if they want it, to try to see if we can't do it this year, because that's something that they're voting on and they're trying to do. And so, and then it's because it's so delayed. Even the negotiations and everything still won't happen, for another 4 to 6 months after the election. Even from what it's saying here, that it wouldn't happen until the beginning of 2018. So,
My only concern is that even if we, say Corey does the work and we all, everybody agrees that, we want to move forward, we want to, and the FOP votes on it, we still would have very limited time to get it onto the ballot this year and even get in any sight, you know what I mean? Any running power on it. And I could be wrong, and more than likely I am, but I would think that next year would probably be, we would have a better chance of getting a voter turnout in either direction than we would if we throw it on the ballot now without having researched it enough.
and just so you know, kind of the process, the way it works is we vote to put something as a ballot initiative, but we're not out there necessarily campaigning for it. That's going to be more up to the FOP.
Right, but I just feel like we'd be kind of short-sighted. And
if they want it to be on the ballot, maybe it's with the police department to go out there and get their signatures and do it.
They can do that too, but I just feel like that if it's something that our police officers want, then that's potentially a wasted resource. It's something that,
I haven't heard that. I know you're talking to someone.
Yeah.
But I also, we all talk to someone.
But let's say just hypothetically that our police officers come back and 90% of the FOP wants this. For us to say, here, go out and get all these signatures and go out and petition your way onto the ballot, to me, that's a waste of resources, because that's an overwhelming number saying this is something we want. And I feel like that we should support it if 90% of the guys wanted it.
Yeah, but we don't know that, so I guess I'd be wondering about the vote,
I'm a
so.
no.
Okay. So,
I have a question for the chief.
yes.
If that's possible. Do you know how many members are in? Or how many of your officers are FOP members?
I don't know exact number. I think most of the police officers and sergeants are And some of the civilian staff as well.
So that's maybe 50. And I'm counting
Yeah,
both.
if we
I
take
put you on the
away
spot.
command staff, and I think we even one command staff person still on it for the legal defense fund. So I'm counting on you guys. If something happens, you guys will protect me, you know, if I get sued. But yeah, it's probably about 50, 55 members. I don't know for sure. I can get that number for you. Or have FOP president called JC get that to you.
Jordan?
If so many are not willing to have Corey look into this issue, I know that after talking to the president of the Colorado FOP, that they'd be willing to send someone to educate us on what is collective bargaining, what this process looks like, what's been done in other municipalities, which is another option that I hope that maybe someone will be open to. And in doing so, I think we would have to do it in an executive session if they brought someone to speak on behalf of the FOP.
It's not executive session.
And if we can do a
Material.
study session on it.
So, but I'm not even, at this point, I'm not willing to listen to it until I know more about it, if the city really wants to do it. Marcy, do you rate your?
I'm a no right now. I'll probably continue to be a no. Sorry, Kyle. But I'm definitely not interested in having the president of the FOP come and tell me what they think the pros and cons are to collective bargaining when they're the ones that are in the end benefiting. We said the same thing about the condo bill with the home builders, that it was a one-sided opinion from one side that was going to benefit. So I'd say if you're going to bring someone in that's not standing to gain from it to educate us. But I'm definitely, I'll reserve my comments as to why, but I'm definitely opposed.
So if I could ask Mayor then, because it sounds like maybe people are wanting to hear where the police officers are on this, would we be able to bring it back and ask the same question once we figure out what that vote was, if it's something they
Sure.
want or not?
Sure.
Was that something that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to weigh in because I haven't.
And I was going to ask you.
I know. So I definitely wanted to wait also until the FOP would vote to move forward, and I don't see the cruciality of pushing it forward this year. I think it's a very important issue and needs to be weighed heavily on both sides, and definitely I would want Corey to do, tell us where does the city stand if we do this, and yeah, I'm torn right now, but I definitely would want to know what the FOP thinks. And then when you're saying that mostly it's the higher ranking police officers, or the commanders, and that are FOP members.
No, it's the other way
did you say
around.
the opposite?
You're
I'm
right.
sorry.
Other way
Oh,
around.
you guys are not.
I'm not.
Okay.
I think there's one or two commanders that still are in because of the LDF. But I felt it was a conflict of interest for me being a part of that organization, so I pulled out as a lieutenant. So.
I think one of the big, because I was thinking the wrong way, so you think it would help attrition of the officers if they had collective bargaining? What do you think?
I think you're putting them in.
Is that bad? Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I think
that
that's
makes a
offline.
difference to me. I mean, that makes a difference to how I would vote, so maybe that's not the question for you if we talk about it later.
Yeah.
We could talk about it with the FOP, but right now, yeah, I'm for waiting for the FOP to take a vote.
Okay. I think that everyone has weighed in on it, so, okay, so we'll look at it later on if in fact they take a vote, and, so. All right. Anything else?
I would just, to close this item, I would say I can absolutely reach out to Mr. JC, Detective JC, as the president of the FOP, and just ask him the timing.
Okay.
Just so, because I'm sure he's going to want to hear the outcome of tonight anyway, so I'll make sure and reach out to him this week and find that out.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
All right, thanks, everybody, we're adjourned. Thank you.
I have a question,
yes.
if that's possible. Again?
It is, we're
Always
not
possible,
adjourned.
right?
Okay.
I'm just, I was approached by different council members from our surrounding cities about our position on climate change.
Oh.
And if, I guess I wanted to poll the council members how they feel about this.
About the
Yes.
withdrawing from the Paris.
Yes.
I actually had a phone call from a couple of our residents asking me to sign the letter, which I have not signed
Yeah,
any letter at this point.
I did the same thing.
And
But I
talked
just-
to Jim a little
yeah.
bit about it.
In terms of passing a resolution, is there any consensus one way or the other?
I think it's a feel-good type thing, you know, I think we
Most
try to.
resolutions are.
I think we really try to do that, I mean, you know, in being thoughtful in what we do. I don't think it hurts anything, but let's hear what everybody else has.
I would agree. I would
Yeah.
definitely sign for a resolution for that.
Yeah. Kyle?
Absolutely.
Joe?
Sure, why not?
Of course. Okay, resolution.
So I was looking at the mayor's request. I did just poke around the NLC website today because they've got a lot of things on there that they are on this topic. And a lot of the jurisdictions that have adopted resolutions, I'm sure we can find some kind of standard resolution. They've inserted some things in there. Salt Lake jumped to mind. Well, we're going to have all CNG vehicles by this date. We're going to get this much power by here and so forth. And so we might not have as robust to comment on those things, but we can absolutely talk about some things we've done here locally. And then in addition to that, longer term, we are going to want to do a sustainability plan for the community, not just for the city, if you will. And so I think long term, absolutely, we're going to be on top of this forever. But yeah, we can do a symbolic resolution and insert some things that are local to Northglenn.
Well, I mean, we do smart commute, I mean, we encourage people to be on their bikes, you know, that helps.
Oh, yeah, we're doing a bike ped trail plan. I mean,
There's
we're
all kinds of things.
all sorts
we
of
do.
things.
You know, we just don't think about it, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know, I just went, what do you want me to do? You know?
Okay.
So I'll tell them that we can sign that. I mean, I know Marjorie Sloan from Golden has signed it, and the mayor from Wheat Ridge, the mayor from Denver. I'm trying to think, someone, and I can't remember if it was Lafayette or Louisville, one of the mayors down there also signed it, so. Good call, all right. Okay, thank you, we are adjourned.